Okay, thank you. Good morning. This session is on the market space that we call land mobile radio. And the objective of our session is to give our staff a really good understanding of what this actually means. What's the architecture? And then how do our products provide value in that critical communications? So the agenda to achieve this is to give you some definitions of what LMR is, what it looks like, where our protection products go, and then we want to make sure we understand the value statement associated with that protection and how we can gain the customer's trust as a true partner. So what is it? It's a wireless communication system referred to as a private radio network. Think of like ham radios on steroids. In its simplest form, it's that push-to-talk feature that our police and first responders have on their shoulder. And it's one base station transmitting to a repeater, which rebroadcasts the signal into a larger network. And that increases the coverage of that what would have been a single base station. And it uses that same sort of channel, so everybody's able to communicate on that same frequency. It's used by the public safety, first responder world. They use the 700 megahertz to 800 megahertz, what are called some of the LTE bands. And the commercial world of taxis and dispatch type commercial industrial applications where people want that feature, we use the 30 to 50, the 150 to 172 VHF low frequency bands, and then the 150 to 172, 450, 470, those are the UHF bands that are commercially available. So it's divided, clearly defined. Systems can be independent, but are often connected to the public switch telephone network or cell phone network, so the interweb. So we have this larger interconnectivity. And while individual mobile portable stations have limited range, that's what the repeaters placed on hills and high buildings do to increase the range and bring it into a larger network. And when we use that term repeaters, that's simply two radios slaved together that use some sort of computer software control or the proprietary controllers that manufacturers such as Motorola and Kenwood have available. Most base stations utilize duplexers, which are a notch filter in arrays for the antennas and for the lobes that the transmission looks like 684 filters to separate the broadcast from receiver on the same antenna. And of course that's a highly PIM rated market space because it's transmitting. There's power, and when you're producing power, you're producing those intermodulations. Narrowbanding technology sort of splices this up into nice notch spectrum segments, small width, 20 kilohertz, 12 kilohertz type spaces, small notches within the larger UHF and VHF bands. And that basically is a hardware change out, so upgrades in the actual radios. So there's still many countries that are in this process, a lot of dynamic motion, a lot of market space opened up for other manufacturer players. So what it does, as we kind of described already, is it takes all those small push-to-talk radio handsets and brings them into a larger network. And it can be as integrated as the government is willing to spend money or whatever private industries want. You can have everybody talking in same sorts of spaces, but what happens is everybody has their own little bands that they're communicating, but into the larger market space. So essentially, it allows a great deal of data in the hands of the people that have these handsets. So that's the larger picture of what it does for communications. It links that together and gives you that mobile handset radio sort of network that isn't just the cell phone network. So what it provides is a secure private radio space, and you see the terms P25, which is a first responder interoperable standard, Department of Justice, and it's a very secure type of radio network security protocol. The other larger, it's actually a larger market space called Tetra, and it's another protocol, and it's an open architecture industry standard. Still very secure, so you will see first responders and people that have secure network reliability requirements. They'll use that type of product. It's a great product. P25 is that secure piece. Tetra is the open architecture. Pretty straightforward. And just the little blurb here that Mr. Harlocker likes. The first time police were using radios was on an AM station. And what did the announcer say to notify the police? And the answer is calling all cars. And the point is that was literally AM radio space, and they would call into the police. So the LMR architecture really looks sort of like a 3-node building block. You have a conventional single repeater connected to what might be 70 other users on their handsets. And so it would look like a small, like think of a ham radio, just a base station kind of amplifier, a tower, and a bunch of people on walkie-talkies that can talk. Great. Then you have trunk, where you're tying that network together. Multiple repeaters with microwave or T1 links between them. And then you have what might be called simulcast, which is multiple repeater sites on the same frequency. So those 3 sort of building blocks are what you would see when you look across your city landscape. You see these towers. This is what's at police stations. These are what are on the sides of mountains and buildings. And you see the domes are the microwave links, and the smaller tower pieces, the actual antennas up there, are the ones that might be talking to the handsets. So it's a multiple link, multiple radios, all talking together to give you that operability. And there are those remote sites that are, quite honestly, unmanned up on building tops and mountaintops. And then all linking that together at a primary site would be your dispatcher, who's actually running all the computer architecture and allowing the monitoring and dispatching calls between the inner systems. So at a primary site, what does the hardware look like? What is this thing we call LMR? Well, it's radios. It's racks of radio power amplifiers. And you'll see smaller base stations, which look like your old CD ham radio. That's what the stuff looks like. It is these power supply channel microwave radios and all the filters. So our market space, you'll see that we participate heavily in this type of market space with AC power protection. And you'll see our products in these racks. This is what some of the equipment looks like. This is what you would find when you go shop for this type of equipment. A solo, an individual radio rack that you can build your own little private radio network. And we'll call it Mark FM. And I can sit there and broadcast to my small private radio handsets. Then you have these larger Tetra base stations that have essentially more power, more capability. Then you have all these extra things that start getting you into a larger infrastructure where you're networking these larger radios. They call them cores or gateways, central recorders. These are the other pieces of equipment that are in those larger racks at the dispatch center so that it links all that data together. So now we'll do a bit of a virtual tour of where our surge protection products go. So as walking up to what would be a station, we'll call it the primary dispatch center, you'll see these types of products. This is the typical market space. You have AC power protection at the service entrance, where we'll use our very popular Apex IMAX products. We have our entry and exit for all the coaxial cables, where we'll use our PEEP panel, and that creates the shelter space. You would see this is what our little tour of where our products go. You have I2Rs and AC and DC protection in the outdoor equipment cabinets. You'll have our ALPUs on the backhaul radios, and you'll have, of course, our polyphasic protection on the coaxial feeder lines. As we move into that shelter, you'll have those equipment racks, and you'll see our protection is ideal for these very technical, highly sensitive radio racks. You'll see our K-rated filter transformers right on the AC power feed. You'll see our Apex protection, Type 1 Motorola and Type 2 Motorola, which are the UL ratings. Our AC protection right on those service entrance panels. You'll see our PEEP and our ISB 50 type products, TSX products, right on those service entrance where the coaxial feeders come in. You'll see a connected, clean ground bar. These are all best practices that are all part of our standard RO Associates training. You'll see our AC protection built into the actual equipment rack, where our AC Edge and OPA type products are very popular in the power feed into these racks. And then each of these pieces of equipment, the routers and modems, the actual power amps, they would all plug in to our AC Edge. You'll see our CPS type products on the data feeds, our TSJ products on these gigabit Ethernet and 10100 links. And so there's a large opportunity for protection product because of all of that sensitive communications. All that copper coming in and out of those racks is an opportunity for protection to provide value for that station. And then finally, at the actual dispatch console, which is a critical part of this whole land mobile radio network, you'll see our AC protection right at those consoles. You'll see our data protection, where they may have a set of telephone similar to our Cisco type systems, where there's Cat5 gigabit Ethernet cabling. You'll see our DC protection. And so these are just samples of what you'd see at those consoles. Every piece of equipment is a great opportunity to provide value. And finally, right at that point of use in those racks, you'll see some of our TSJ and VPR products, which are directly mounted to the user. This product we call the VPR directly mounts to their headset. So this is an important aspect of protection. It's not just the equipment that we're intended to protect. The human operators are a very integral piece of that land mobile radio network, and human safety is a primary issue. So in a summary, when you look at our product sets across our data, RF, AC, and DC products, you'll see very good fits in those equipment racks, in the service entrance, in the coaxial feeder entrance for our product fits. And just a snapshot of what the products look like and how they go into those pieces of the critical network. We've got a few really nice guidelines set up with marketing and with the LMR strategic manager, Reed Hardlocker, where we can offer specific solutions for each piece of the equipment. So this is a nice summary chart. At a glance, you can see what products go into those types of sites. So at the dispatch counter, you'll have that equipment rack where you'll see opportunities for TSJ and AC Edge. At the master sites, you have opportunities for AC power protection, the data and the coaxial power protection. Remote sites have that same set of architecture, same sets of needs. And we can basically help the customer find a good fit for any of their copper protection requirements. So our value proposition speaks directly to what the customers have told us their needs are. At that dispatch counter, it's human safety, because as they describe it, that dispatch human operator is connected to the radio antenna. And so they're the lightning rod, and we're there to protect that and add value. The master sites, that's a reliable primary power backup communications. At the remote sites, you need to provide reliable extension of the range of the networks. The master sites have 100% operation reliability. That's what our value statement is. The master sites and the AC electrical room, we maximize the equipment productivity and prevent damage through the entire network. At the master and backup site, tower point-to-point radios, those backhaul radios, that's 100% operations reliability and links between the stations. So a lot of the market space says, oh, those radios aren't that valuable, I'll forego protection. But that's the link to the other stations. So it isn't just the radio you're protecting. So that value is in that reliable operation. And finally, in remote operations, it's reliable redundancy. It's maximize the first responder network operations. And it maintains that link into the telephone and internet network, larger networks. And there's always a focus on redundancy and reliability. So the customer requirements, reliability, reduced damage, high performance expectations, and our value proposition speaks directly to that.